Good morning and welcome to Unusual Activity powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Thank you for joining us this 21st of January 2015. Certainly an active morning this morning. We in the U.S. Receiving certain economic data. We'll go over that in just a moment. Let's jump into the futures. We have futures now negative 6.2, negative 6 handles at 2010.75. We have crude oil now positive by 76 cents at $47.24. We have gold over that $1,300 mark, higher by $7.70 at 1301. Excuse me, 1302. Just ticked higher just a bit here, and the 10-year maintaining that below 2% level, even below that 1.8% level at 1.783. We have a reversal in the dollar just a few minutes ago here at 92.386, and higher euro at 0.0088 by 0.0088 at 1.1643. So again, looks to be a rather volatile open pre-market in the U.S. here. So let's jump into what we have seen yesterday in terms of activity. There you are on the presentation here. Certainly, let's jump into the numbers from yesterday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was more or less flat, higher by 0.02% at 17,515.23. The S&P 500 at 2022.55, higher by 0.15, and the Nasdaq at 4654.85, closing at 4654.85, higher by just off of a 0.5%. In general, there was a overall negative sentiment for most of the trading day. We did have a rebound to the flat mark in the last 2 hours of trading. So what we'd like to do, let's jump into some of the economic numbers that we were seeing this morning from the U.S. side. On the Baltic Dry Index, we saw another rise in the Baltic Dry Index by 2.3% to 770 points. It is now are we seeing a little bit of a trend on the upturn, if you will. We have two days in a row that index particularly is rising. So interesting, good index to watch. Specific, nice leading indicator for economic activity, shipping, specifically grains, raw materials. So that's something that we keep an eye on a daily basis. Mortgage Bankers Association reporting on applications this morning. The composite index is higher by 14.2%. Purchase index, purchase applications lower by 3.0%, and the refi index higher by 22%. So again, these numbers tend to fluctuate. We see a significant fluctuations in these numbers on a weekly basis, and they have to do from a larger, a little more higher perspective with respect to the applications. We watch the 10-year here, folks. So when the 10-year maintains a lower rate, a lot of mortgage loans, especially specifically in the U.S., are based off of as a benchmark off of the 10 years. So when the 10-year maintains a lower rate, lower yield, certainly it drives mortgage refi applications. Certainly on the purchase side is a little bit more nuanced if there's more housing starts and home purchases and so forth. But that's something to keep an eye on. But specifically on the refi index, the lower this 10 years is maintained, specifically below the 2%, the higher chance we'll get a higher refi numbers in terms of applications. So let's continue here. We have a few more data points to get to. Housing starts for December were at 1.09 million versus the 1.04 million estimated, prior revised from 1.03 million to 1.04 million. U.S. Building permits for December month-over-month numbers, 1.032 million versus the expected 1.060 million. So a little bit lower on the building permits. Housing starts a little bit better. Also, month-over-month for December was higher by 4.40 versus percent versus the 1.20 estimated, previous revised from negative 1.60 to negative 4.50. So kind of an interesting on the revision side, although a better number on the housing starts for the December number. So again, we'll continue to watch how the futures respond here. We'll get into the technicals in just a few minutes here. On the Redbook, we did have also Redbook numbers. These are same-store sales. We have here Redbook same-store sales during the first 2 weeks of January, down 3.5% month over month, up 3.4% year over year. So down on month over month, up on by 3.4% year over year. So again, a little bit of a nuanced number there. We'll see how the rest of the pre-market continues. And we are anticipating a 4-week T-bill auction results later today as well. So let's get into some of the themes that we're watching this morning into tomorrow. So one of the things, certainly we have a lower dollar this morning, but overall there's been significant dollar strength over the last several weeks into months. If you take a look at the chart, and we'll go over the technicals in a few minutes. If you take a look at the chart all the way from the summer, you see a consistent rise in the U.S. dollar versus the euro. Now, in terms of the euro, it would behoove us to think about the ECB meeting tomorrow and their implication, the announcement of how much purchasing they will announce, and will the street be happy with this? That's the larger story here. And what kind of commentary will the ECB mention? What their opinion is about deflation risk? We've discussed that as well. Will they mention the Grexit, the possibility of the Greeks exiting the euro? Certainly interesting to see if the ECB discusses last week's Swiss National Bank reduction of the interest rates, also removal of the cap versus the euro, and this is something that we would like to see if the ECB responds to that. Certainly we're continuing to listen for global economic news as it pertains to are we seeing a continued decline in economic activity, and specifically on the U.S. side, can the U.S. Should that happen globally, can the U.S. decouple from that potentially declining economic activity? So those are the main themes coming in this morning. We'll get into some of the specific stocks as we get into this program. Let's get into some of the overnight sessions that we see in Asia specifically. Let's jump into Asia. So we have the Nikkei lower by 0.49%, the Hang Seng higher by 1.68%, and the Shanghai a bit of a whopper there, higher by 4.74%. Now, keep in mind the Shanghai is notorious for having these really extreme volatility movements in that particular index. In Europe, let's jump into Europe here. Mostly on the downside, outside of the FTSE. FTSE higher by 0.61%. DAX in Germany lower by 0.65%, IBEX in Spain lower by 0.94%, and the CAC in Paris lower by 0.64%. So again, a bit of a negative sentiment this morning, but really all eyes are on the ECB for tomorrow, and really will they deliver the right message that the markets want to hear? Has the ECB been, for lack of a better expression, pigeonholed themselves into having to do something, having to have specific actions with respect to asset purchases? Has the Swiss National Bank positioned itself that more or less the ECB has to act, and will the street be happy with what the ECB, the action the ECB takes tomorrow? So what we'd like to do now is jump into some of the technicals with Milton. Certainly, all eyes are on ECB tomorrow. What are you watching this morning? Anything that jumps out at you specifically this morning? Certainly the ECB, I'm sure.
Well, it's all about the ECB tomorrow, I think. A lot of people are waiting to see what exactly is going to happen. A lot of people are hoping for that bazooka. You know, the bulls are hoping for that bazooka to come out. If it doesn't come out, I've been talking to many people the past few days, and a lot of people think that a low to mid-level type of announcement tomorrow is already baked into this market. So ideally, the bulls want to have something come out of left field, where it's a bazooka type announcement, where Draghi pushes everything aside and goes full steam ahead on QE. If that doesn't happen, I think we're going to see some volatility into tomorrow morning, tomorrow during the trading day, into Friday. Then you have Greece on Sunday, which could be another disaster on the European side. So I think all that's being taken into effect. The markets have been resilient, quite shockingly, have been resilient after a lot of negativity has been going around. The question, I was on a phone call this morning earlier, the question some people are asking is, A, is it going to be the type of resiliency that comes to a new high in the markets, or B, is this the final straw that's going to break the camel's back and the market will eventually break lower? We're watching, the volume is there for a substantial move to either direction. Keep that in mind. The volume is there. So we're watching, we're waiting. We're ready to jump when it happens, but as of now, tomorrow seems to be the day that everybody is waiting for. Some quick text that we're looking at, technicals. We'll look at the ES first. ES right now is trading, which we mentioned yesterday, which was the resistance levels around 210. It's trading at those levels right now. Intraday resistance right here. Ideally, we have the 215 to 225. Both those levels as resistance. Support, we're looking at the 2008 and ideally the 2000 number, which we've been mentioning for a while, which seems to be that magnet for now. So we're keeping an eye on those those levels, keeping an eye on the volume. Not expecting much today unless something happens outside of the morning information and news. But right now seems to be a interesting morning to the fact that oil is up and the markets are down. So we'll see what happens throughout the day. We'll see what happens at the close, and it's tomorrow morning, the overnight session, and then it's tomorrow morning. Oil is up this morning, up about 2.25%, trading up over $1.06. Right now, oil is right around that resistance level, the 47.50s, 48 level. We're watching that level, watching the volume, keeping an eye and seeing what the activity is during the day. Two main numbers for any long-term oil player. The two numbers to watch are 51.75 to the upside and the 44, I think it was 44.20 to the downside. Watch those two numbers. 51.75 can confirm the downtrend break, and the 44.20 would extend the downtrend on oil and could possibly see the 30s. So long-term traders watching those two numbers, mark those numbers down. Daily intraday traders, we're watching the 47.50 to 48 level as resistance, with the support around 46.5, right where it was pre-market. Keeping an eye on that number, watching yesterday's low at 46.34, and keeping an eye at that level as well. If that level is broken, we could see continuation weakness. So those are the numbers we're watching on oil. VIX is in that resistance level. It's in the 19 to 20, 21 level. Seeing what happens with VIX. Is it going to break lower, or is it going to continue to move upside? 21 upside break could continue the downside move in the markets. We're watching those levels. We're watching the VIX right here. There isn't that much fluctuation going on in the VIX, but as of now, it's still in that level, still in the resistance levels. We're watching, we're keeping a close eye, and seeing how the action is today. Gold, what can we say on the gold? It broke that 1250 number. Where did we say it's going to go next? 1300. Where is it? 1302. Right at that level of resistance. We're keeping an eye on this level. Watching the volume, watching the level, watching to see if it can continue upside or will it break down and retest that 1250 number. As of now, trading pre-market, it's above 13 with volume, keeping an eye to see what happens at the end of the day and continuation on that side. But as of now, 1250 support, 13 right at resistance. We'll see what happens during the trading day today. Currencies, euro is up, dollar finally down. Keeping an eye on that, keeping an eye on the reaction to euro today going into tomorrow, seeing what happens. It doesn't matter the action. All that matters is what happens tomorrow. What does Draghi say? What does Draghi say is all that matters. What does he do regarding QE? Is it going to be the bazooka? Is it going to be what everyone expects? Or is it going to be something that people are going to be like, whoa, what's going on here? He didn't do what we expected. Keeping an eye on those levels, keeping an eye on everything. We'll see what happens regarding the currencies. But key thing to remember, it's all about tomorrow morning. It's all about the ECB. And after that, it's all about Greece. It's all about, it seems to be the same situation. It's all outside of the U.S. First with the SNB, then you have Europe now. You have the ECB, then you have Greece. We're keeping an eye on what happens outside the U.S. because it always affects the U.S. markets. George?
Thank you, Milton. So let's dive into the material. Milton, thank you so much for that technical analysis. As as I'm sure you can, if you've been listening to us for a while, one of the things. There's really two things that we really concentrate on. One is technical analysis, certainly fundamental conversation that's maybe affecting specific markets, and of course watching the news and its effect on specific stocks and indices. So it's really it's a great way to approach a market. It's a great way to have an educated opinion on what's happening in the marketplace, and certainly taking into consideration everything in terms of fundamental data, macroeconomic, technical analysis, and market ready news, and how to work with that on specific stocks. That's really important to note. So let's jump into specifics on stocks. Let's get into some of the uh, let's get into the commodities, raw materials here. Quick check here. We have crude oil higher by $1.10 here, $47.57. So again, a bit of an uptick this morning. We'll see if that's able to continue. As Milton said, we are at near those resistance levels. Gasoline higher by 0.0246 at 1.3374. Natural gas still below the $3 mark at 2.952, higher by 12 cents. We'll see if that again, that as Milton said, some of these numbers tend to be magnets for some of these larger indices and futures, so that this is something that we want to keep an eye on. Heating oil higher by 0.0319 at 1.6585. Gold above that $1,300 mark. We've been talking about that for a few days now. Built that support at 1,200, went through that resistance at 1,250. We're now at 1,302.5, $1,302.50, higher by $8.30. Silver higher by 0.474 at $18.42.5. That is a rather impressive gains in silver as of late. Remember, we were below that 16 level not too long ago. So as gold, as the precious metals increase, we're certainly keeping an eye on that. Platinum lower by $2.60 at $1,284 even. We have cocoa. We have cocoa lower by $26 at $28.99. Let's get into some of the yields that we are monitoring this morning, and we have been monitoring this for a few weeks now, specifically on the 5-year. We had some interesting volatility in the 5-year. We went up to as high as 1.662. We are now below the 1.3 level of 1.296. We have the 10-year at 1.790, still below that 1.8%. And we have the 30-year, folks, at 2.366. Seems to be, for the time being, settling in below that 2.5%. We are over 160 basis points below where we were over a year ago on that 30-year. And that is a really interesting story here, folks. And if we take a look at the yield curve, folks, this is something that I'm sure that central bankers monitor rather closely, specifically compared to where we were a month ago, compared to where we were a year ago. If you take a look at the 2, 5, 10, and 30-year curve here, much flatter than we were a year ago. A year ago, the 30-year was at 3.76. The 10-year was at let's see here, 2.1. No, excuse me. We were at 10-year. We'll get that number in just a moment here. A month ago, the 10-year was at 2.16. So again, something very interesting there. So again, flattening yield curve. Looking at that 2% there, a little bit higher than we were a year ago. Typically, a flattening yield curve does indicate a not as a hugely expansive economy, expansionary economy, and this is something I'm sure central bankers monitor rather closely. So let's get into some of the specific stocks this morning that we are watching. Let's get into news that's being circulated around desks this morning. CLWT announces a 60,000 share buyback. CLWT, which is a Eurotech holding company, currently at, we'll get this pre-market information here, currently indicating at $2.38. This is based on the close yesterday. COP, we have COP, ConocoPhillips, currently indicating at $64 even. Bank of America upgrades to buy. On TUBE, Tube Mogul, we're currently yesterday's close at $16.39. We had a Seeking Alpha article on Tube Mogul, author suggesting that should rise 50%. Author has approximately 800 plus subscribers. So again, positive article on Seeking Alpha with respect to Tube Mogul, excuse me. CREE, Cree, Summit Research says Cree is nothing to get excited over. This morning, Cree is indicating at $33.76, just a bit below where it closed yesterday's close. Also, SAP price target lowered to $75 from $87 at Argus, currently indicating at $63.56. Also, a few more here on specific stocks that are being circulated on the news side. LRCX, Lam Research, we have indicating at $78.94. LRCX, Lam Research coverage is assumed with an outperform at Credit Suisse. Price target raised to $104 from $85. We'll see if that has an impact on specific in trading this morning. Also, AMAT, Applied Materials, indicating currently at $23.75. Applied Material coverage assumed with an outperform at Credit Suisse. Let's get into some of the overnight and early morning insider transactions. We have Macy's, obviously, indicated closed yesterday at $63.30. We have chief HR officer purchases $36,000 worth of Macy's. CDNA, Erdix, we currently closed at $7.05. We have 10% owner purchasing a little bit over 100,000 shares, $100,000 worth of CDNA. ACHN, Archelion Pharmaceuticals, we have a purchase of $4.7 million worth of a 10% owner in ACHN. We'll get that number in just a moment for you. Actually, another ACHN is also approximately $12 million worth of purchases in ACHN. And this morning, yesterday's close at $14.89. We'll see where we are in just a few minutes on ACHN with New York Open. We also have MLNK. MLNK, we have yesterday's close at $3.68. We had $141,000 purchase by 10% owner. So again, we'll see how this works out when the market opens. Let's jump into the syndicates. This morning we have quite a few to get through. So ALNY, we have currently indicating at $92.49 at let's see, at 4.737 million shares, secondary priced at $95, a bit lower than yesterday's close. ARNA, files to sell common stock. Currently, the stock is indicating this morning at $5 and a penny. FANG, Diamondback Energy, currently indicating at $61.25. Files to sell 1.5 million shares. Again, $61.25, a bit lower than we were at yesterday's close. Again, secondary syndicates tend to have a dilutive effect, a negative price action, at least on the initial news, as the street digests this information. ZINC, Horsehead Holdings, currently indicating at $14.63. XON, Intrexon, we currently are indicating $31.03. Intrexon files to sell 150 million in common stock. KERX files to sell 100 million in common stock, currently at $13.25. That's an indication early morning. So again, we're just a few seconds away from the opening bell in New York. MBLY, Mobileye, currently at $35.99. Files to sell 500 million in ordinary shares for holders. Again, currently indicating at $35.99, quite a bit lower than we were in yesterday's close, right around the 37.76 mark. So continuing, Puma Biotechnology, PBYI. Puma Biotechnology, we're currently indicating at $2.10. Files to sell 1 million shares of common stock. Radius Health, RDUS. Radius Health currently at $38.99. And as we have the New York Open, ABCO, the advisor board company, currently at $46.61. Let's see, ABCO announces proposed offering of 4.7 million shares. VSTM files to sell 40 million in common stock. VSTM currently at $8.51 this morning, lower by 5.3% this morning. So again, we are seeing, as we said, syndicates do tend to have a negative impact on, at least initially, on the specific securities, whether it's secondary, whether it's a mixed shelf, common stock offering, etc. But that's something initially we are seeing. It tends to be a dilutive effect, folks. So that's why you're seeing a negative impact. So let's run through the numbers as we get ready for the market this morning. We have S&P futures are lower by 8.75 handles. We'll take a look at the ES here. And we are at the low of the morning in the ES future. So again, lower now by 9 handles at 20.08.00. So again, we'll continue to keep an eye on that. On crude oil, still right around that range, higher by 77 cents. At 47.24, and we'll take a look at gold, still above that 1300 level at 1304.8, higher by $10.90. And of course, we have the 10-year, always keeping an eye on that at 1.783, still below that 2%, maintaining below that 1.8%, and again keeping an eye on that particular yield curve that we talked about before, the flattening, or what we're seeing, the flattening of the yield curve in the Treasury. So folks, thanks for joining us this morning. Certainly a lot of going on, and just a takeaway here is keeping an eye on any rhetoric that you'll be hearing throughout the day on the ECB announcements tomorrow, and we feel that that's going to just to be kind of an overhang for the rest of the day into tomorrow. And specifically for tomorrow is what they will say on specific purchases and whether or not the street will be happy with that. So again, thank you for listening. This has been Unusual Activity powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Thank you for joining us. Wishing you a great day and good hunting.